And for any new person, I'm Cheralyn Berry. I'm the FCS agent here at Cooperative Extension. I run Briggs Avenue Community Garden, a big, beautiful 45-acre property that's mostly wild, but a couple of the acres are developed for the community garden. And every week on Wednesdays, we've been having these sort of little office hours food nerd talks to learn about something new. Since we can't do cooking classes, I want people to be inspired by food and love food because it's a topic that I adore. We eat 3 times a day if we're lucky. And so we have to be able to have some variety, not only for nutrition, but also interest and beauty in life. So let's get right into it. For my seeds kids, this is what we gave them today. It's called an apple banana. And what I want you to know about bananas is that there are so many different kinds. What most people think of when they think banana is this guy. This is a Cavendish banana. And this is like one of the most generic things. It is the most consumed fruit in the US, and we are only the second importer of this fruit. Europe is the #1 importer of this particular fruit. Okay, but there's just so much diversity. There are over 1,000 varieties of cultivated bananas across the world. In some island countries, island nations, it is the primary starch that people eat. They eat it more than rice. They eat it more than they eat it more than potatoes or wheat. They're consuming primarily plantains as their primary starch. So when you look at this plain, in my opinion, generic banana, there's so much to say about this. There's a huge political ramifications around bananas, huge financial considerations around bananas. Bananas have shaped the governments of many countries over a couple centuries, and we're not going to get too much into the political ramifications of bananas, but the term banana republic, like I was saying to the seeds kids this morning, it's not just a really cool store to buy a suit in the mall. Banana republic is a term where a corporation that grows fruit, primarily bananas, comes in and takes over a government in a coup, and to use their land to grow primarily bananas. This also happened with sugarcane. That's how Hawaii became the 50th state, or the 49th state. Ooh, I didn't look that up. I should have. Became one of our last states because it was over sugarcane, but it was the Dole Company that actually went in and overthrew Queen Liliuokalani's government to make this a state, mainly for growing sugarcane, but it was the Dole Company, which is one of the dominant corporations that grows bananas. So, but we're just going to talk about the different tastes of bananas, the nutrition of bananas, and we're also going to talk about diversity of bananas. So, this apple banana, I have a very wonderful relationship with. I did some of my culinary and sort of farming training on the big island of Hawaii, and I worked on a farm that this was their primary source of income, was not only running a B&B with a bunch of yurts all over this like 75-acre property, this jungle property in the Puna district, but they also grew bananas and avocados. And I got really good with a machete harvesting these particular bananas. And I ate so many of these that it took me years to eat bananas again. And after you develop a taste for finer bananas, this guy's a wah-wah, in my humble opinion. Please, I don't mean to yuck anybody's yum. If you love these, keep loving them. They're good for you. But, sauce it up. Get some of these. There's an apple banana. Here's a Thai banana. Let me see these. Oh, this is a Central American burro banana. These all have different flavors. And this is just a few. There's pink bananas and purple bananas and brown bananas. When you see bananas in the store, go ahead and buy them and give them a whirl. If you buy one of these larger bananas, this is a plantain, they call it, but basically it's banana. When they're green, you cook them like a starch. You don't eat these raw. They'll be terrible if you eat them raw. But any banana that pretty much turns this color, you can eat raw. So there's actually some bananas in nature that are ripe when they're green. So correct myself there. But in America, you'll probably never see those kinds of bananas because there's no market for them. But in order to cook a plantain, if you've ever had tostones, which is a Central American delicacy, you peel this guy, slice it thin, get some fat hot, and you fry the little chunk of banana. And once it turns golden, you take it out and you smash it so it exposes the inside of the banana, and then you put it back in the fryer, and it is the most gorgeous thing. Not that I'm advocating eating a ton of fried food, but if you are going to eat fried food, a vegetable is good. So technically this is a fruit, even though it doesn't have seeds in it. Botanically, it's a berry, because normally wild bananas have lots and lots of seeds in them, but we've bred them to not have seeds in them. So, so that's why we could enjoy them and not break a tooth, because the seeds are very hard. I want you to know, when you look at this guy, the Cavendish, that you are looking at an endangered species. This guy might be on its way out. So let's talk about that a little bit. So bananas are a tropical, what people call a tree. This is my low-tech PowerPoint. So this is a banana tree, but a banana is not really a tree. It's the largest herbaceous plant in the world, and it produces this bunch of bananas on the top. And then down here you see this little tiny tree. This is how they propagate themselves. They push off these little pups. And so if you want to propagate your bananas, you can separate this little guy off with a shovel and plant him somewhere else. It takes about 9 to 12 months for a little tiny shoot to turn into this large banana tree. And in order to get the bananas off, you cut the tree down, and you usually when they're this big on farms, the way it works is if you're working alone, you're going to cut the tree and it's going to start to fall, and you have to catch the bananas by right there, and then you cut it off, and then you carry this massive thing to the road. Now, if you're working on a commercial farm, it's usually a two-man operation where somebody will be underneath the bananas, somebody else will chop the tree, the second person catches the bananas, and then puts them on these really neat kind of conveyor belts that you can ride, and it takes it back to the packing house. So, so yeah, this is super interesting. And then, you actually let this guy fall down and chop him up in pieces, and he'll fertilize the next tree, but also sometimes little pups will come off of these chunks that you cut apart. Now, if you ever get the pleasure of chopping down a banana tree, I highly recommend it, but wear clothes that you don't care about, because this has latex in it. And when you chop into it, this explosion of moisture, it's not like chopping down a woody tree. It's like chopping, I don't even know, something really, really juicy. It explodes with this moisture that dries and is very tacky, like very similar, reminds me of like a Post-it note, a sticky note. You can feel it, and it's tacky, and you can stick it in different places. Banana sap is like that, only it never comes out of your clothes unless you use like something that you can degrease airplane engines with. In fact, when you work in the tropics, if you go to a public laundromat, they usually have separate washers for banana and papaya farmers, because the sap on those plants are so nasty that it'll ruin the washing machine for everybody else, speaking from personal experience. So, so that's super interesting, and it's great exercise to do something like this. So the reason that this is an endangered species is because of fusarium wilt, also known as Panama disease, because it started in Panama. But fusarium wilt is common throughout the world, but there's certain kinds that attack tropical plants. There was one banana, that song, Sorry We Have No Bananas Today, was based on something that happened in the 40s and 50s. So the main banana that your grandparents probably ate was the Gros Michel, which actually means Big Mike. And then fusarium wilt came along and knocked this guy out. Boom, all of a sudden, all the plants, I mean, millions of acres were just starting to die, and there was nothing you could do about it, because fusarium is a microbe. It's a fungus, and once it gets into the soil and starts to get into plants, as you walk over it, you're contaminating the rest of the fields. And something that we do in agriculture, and really has been going on since we've really industrialized agriculture, is rather than having, like, if you had a banana farm and you have 40 different kinds of bananas, maybe a fungus might wipe out some of them, but it may not wipe out other ones. And you can tell which types of bananas are resistant to that type of fungus. Also, if that fungus is chasing through a field and it hits a place where it can't infect those plants, it won't necessarily have the ability to keep chasing across the field. But the way that we do agriculture globally is to plant the same crop for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, and that's called a monocrop. And that's something that is dangerous and is a sort of linchpin to our agricultural system worldwide. So, so that happened to the Gros Michel, and there was a gentleman who wrote that song, "Yes, we have no bananas today," because the Gros Michel disappeared. And from what I hear, this Gros Michel actually was a finer tasting, delicious banana. It was much tougher. So today, the Cavendish, when you find it in the store, it comes out of a box that's wrapped in paper. A very tough box. And with a Gros Michel banana, you used to be able to just take those big bunches of banana and throw them on a ship and set sail. You can't do that now because the Cavendish actually is much more delicate. And your grandma might also tell you that the Cavendish isn't as good of a banana as the Gros Michel. Now, I found out, because I thought the Gros Michel was totally extinct, it does grow in other places, but in very small amounts, and you can get a small box of them shipped to you for like $70. I'm debating doing that because I've never had a Gros Michel, but I've learned a lot about it, so I'm tempted. But the Cavendish actually also, the reason that this one became so popular is Gros Michel was attacked by type 1 of this fusarium mold called tropical race 1, TR1. Well, the reason Cavendish was so popular is you could take Cavendish and plant it in the same spot that Gros Michel was, and it was resistant to this TR1, this fusarium wilt type 1. So they planted it, and then the fusarium, it changed, it mutated, and now TR4 is wiping out Cavendish all over the world. And so there are scientists all over the world that are running as fast as they can and doing a lot of different studies to try to figure out how to cross resistant varieties with the Cavendish so that it will be resistant to this TR4. Because one of the reasons, when you knock down the forest to put in a crop, and then it gets attacked by fusarium, the way that they have continued to keep the banana going is by knocking down more forest and putting it in clean soil, and then eventually it chases up to there, and they keep knocking down the forest. So rather than knocking down more forest, they're trying desperately to find a way to save the Cavendish banana, because Cavendish, it's like a machine. Like if you have a banana this size and has a certain way to pack at a certain time that it ripens, it's going to be different than a plantain. So you can't just easily cross over. Plus, Americans are used to perfect food. They want to perfectly, I mean, even this banana with this little bit of bruising, looks ugly to some people. They're used to that like perfect yellow banana. So if they find another banana that's resistant to fusarium wilt, and it's a bright yellow banana, but when you eat the bright yellow banana, it's not quite ripe yet, there's not going to be a market for it. So there's this huge race. Some scientists are doing it traditionally, where they're finding like really small, tough varieties that are totally resistant to fusarium, and then crossing them by pollinating plants and trying to find seeds and doing it the old-fashioned way. And then there's also scientists that are just taking genes from those resistant varieties and genetically modifying the Cavendish banana to be resistant to the fusarium wilt, which is going to be this big backlash if GMO bananas, even though it's a banana crossing with a banana, it makes a lot of people uncomfortable to eat genetically modified organisms, even if there isn't any research to say that they are more dangerous than another. So, so there's just so much more I could talk about bananas, but I want to open it up for questions so that so we can talk about it. So ask me questions.
All right. So the first question, I think, was when you were doing your dance. So this person said,
you were doing what?
Your little dance at the beginning.
Oh.
So she was asking, is that a plantain? So maybe she'd like to see the plantain again.
Oh yeah, these are plantains, but they're bananas. It's just, we call them plantains because they're cooking bananas. But oh, if you cook these, you can actually find these at like Alpaca Chicken. You can find both of them. If you go to Alpaca Chicken or Luna, they have both of these cooked. Alpaca chicken, this one, when you cook these, they're called maduros or maduros. And they're like fried and like, oh my gosh, they're so sweet and so delicious. And then they do tostones like I was describing before. There's also, you can take these and slice them very thin and then layer them next to each other and then sit them on top and fry them. And then it makes almost like bread and you can put a sandwich together with it. So yeah, that's called a patacon. And so I'd say give it a try. It's like super, super delicious. But yeah, plantains, these are cooking bananas. You could probably eat this one raw, although I think it's better cooked. And this one you definitely want to cook. Don't try to take a bite out of this one. It'll be so gross. There's like this, oh, it's just like almost like you bit into chalk or something. It's odd. But when you cook it, it's like, oh, it's fantastic.
Cool. So the next question is it true that the more bruises and brown it is, the sweeter it will be?
This is true. This is absolutely true. Primarily, yes. Now, like for my Latinx folks out there where their mamas cook this kind of food for them, they know that this is delicious and perfect on the inside. But if people have grown up eating Cavendish, they're going to look at this and think that this is rotten, and it's not. It just means that it's super sweet. Now, there are some varieties that are bright green that when you peel them, they're like perfect and delicious, you know, just like that. But it's true that as a banana ripens, it actually becomes more brown like this. And whenever you see that happen, this is full of starch. And then as this ripens, this the starches, they break apart. A starch and a sugar are made of the same things, but starches are long molecules of carbon, long molecules of starch. So they don't have a sweetness. The shorter the starch, the shorter the chain of starches, the sweeter it is, which is why table sugar, sucrose, is only 2 carbons long, and like the starch from potatoes is many thousands of carbons long. So it's, and we have something called amylase in our spit, which, remember, ACE is an enzyme, and in our saliva. And so that's why, then it breaks down starches. It breaks down those long chains into shorter chains. So it's just like if you took I'm sure you probably did this in like elementary science. You take a saltine cracker and you start chewing on it, and it tastes starchy, but you just keep chewing on it, and it actually gets sweeter while it's in your mouth. You have to chew it for a long time. But that's because the flavor profile, as those get chopped up into smaller pieces, becomes sweeter. And that's what happens enzymatically in here. As this ripens, those starch chains start to break down, and that's how you taste that it's sweet.
Very cool. I love, there's some great questions here. So this is, she says, I actually have banana plants in my backyard. It was growing bananas, but they fall or rot. So I'm curious, she didn't actually ask a question there, but my question would be, why are they falling or rotting?
Well, so the thing is that usually here, because you need 9 months to a year, depending on the variety of banana, in order to get an actual bunch of bananas, usually when they're going to fall off and die, because these are tropical plants, they don't tolerate frost or cold nights at all. So and I don't know of any varieties that, you know, we have 5 or 6 months, maybe a little bit more, maybe 8 months of frost-free time. But even if we don't have a frost and it gets really chilly at night, bananas are not happy about it. Bananas primarily grow in like zone 9 to 11. So we're talking like Florida. That's where you can grow them. They're perennial. They just keep coming back. You can get them, you know, all year round because it never freezes there. So that's why bananas, there's not really a season for bananas. You just keep cultivating them. The only way that you could grow a banana to actually give you good fruit here in North Carolina is if it's in a pot and you bring it inside and you have like a really sunny area and a warm area, and you keep it where it has plenty of sunlight all day, and it will give you bananas. But we just don't really have, I mean, it's not to say that there aren't exceptions to the rule. There are some people with some majorly green thumbs and some microclimates and things where somebody might be able to, or if we have like a really warm winter, like a late, you know, a fall that is like really warm, sometimes you can get a small bit of bananas. But mainly here in this environment, they're grown as an ornamental because they're just gorgeous plants. I mean, and you can actually use the leaves. You can't eat the leaves, but you can actually wrap meats and rice and things like that to steam. And they're used as like cooking implements. Banana leaves all over the world. So you'll find like, you know, like when I lived in Hawaii, there's a lot of there's a lot of Filipino cuisine there. It's a huge melting pot there because it's halfway between the U.S. and Japan. So there's like a lot of Asian cultures and South Indian and all different kinds of cultures that mix together. Chinese, a lot of different people went there for different reasons, either sugarcane harvest, bananas, lots of agriculture, and also, you know, World War II. So there's a lot of people that ended up moving there and staying there. And you can find banana leaves wrapped up in all different kinds of cuisines. Like one of my favorite thing was lumpia, which is a sweet, delicious, like sticky rice, a Filipino style sticky rice. It's sweet, and you open it up. It's neat. It comes in a little cone, and you just kind of unwrap it, and you can eat it almost like an ice cream cone out of the banana leaf. Sometimes they'll look like little cigars, and you can peel those back and just eat it like a candy bar. Kalua pork is another thing, like they call it lau lau in Hawaiian cuisine, and you take the banana leaf and you put like pork and rice and roll it up and steam it, different vegetables, sometimes fish. Excellent cuisine. So you can use banana leaves here, but I haven't seen anybody get fruit. That's not to say that there aren't some green thumbs out there that have done it. It's just not something that could be like regularly cultivated for either a commercial crop or, you know, you might be disappointed if you didn't get bananas.
Well, the cool thing is someone had actually said in the questions, my family in Mexico used the leaf as a tamale wrap. So that was cool.
Tamale. Absolutely. Like I'm more familiar with Sonoran cuisine, which is one of the northern states in Mexico, the one that borders Arizona and part of California, and part of New Mexico. And they use corn husks there because corn grows all over Mexico. But when you get more into like the tropical regions, absolutely, like that is a beautiful, delicious, you know, it's so like moist, and it actually tastes different than when you steam them in corn husks. It tastes different when you steam them in banana leaves. Yeah, so good.
Sounds good. And then she followed up with a question, can you make yogurt with apples and bananas?
You know, oh yeah. I mean, you can. The thing is that making yogurt, like you would probably do, you know, you could do your base, you know, make your yogurt, and then I would probably, like, if you were gonna put apples in it, like store it with apples in it, I would probably cook the apples first. But bananas, I think you would probably want to slice fresh and put in there right before you serve it, because they have such enzymatic reaction. When you peel them, they turn brown, and so that's kind of like, and they break down real fast, so they're not as tasty when they're kind of gooey. So it's fine to put them in baked goods and things like that, but it might be a little bit gross if you have it, you know, kind of mess up the flavor profile and mouthfeel of your yogurt. So I would probably put them in there fresh. You'll find that when you bite into a Cavendish, it actually turns brown faster than when you bite into an apple banana. I don't know why, but when you bite into an apple banana, it takes a little while for it to turn brown where you bite it. So, and it does have a brightness like an apple. I love it.
So then the next question is, where can you buy unusual bananas, and what types have you seen locally?
Okay, so I was really surprised to find these apple bananas. We were gonna try to do a coconut this week. I was so excited for the coconut, but when I saw these, I'm like, that's it. We're talking about the banana family, because I have not seen these since I left Hawaii. But you know, if you go to any international grocery store, it's going to have more than one kind of banana. Sometimes if you go to like a Harris Teeter, or you know, whatever your normal store is, you might find a plantain and then a Cavendish banana, and that's it. Occasionally in your like shishi fanfan stores, you'll find like a red banana. Sometimes maybe like 5 of them, they won't have a bunch. But if you go to like any international grocery store, you hit their produce department, they're almost always going to have different kinds of bananas. I mean, even ones that cater to like Indian cuisine, they'll even have different bananas. But especially Latinx communities, Asian communities, it's almost like, just like tamarind, the whole world eats all different kinds of bananas, and America and Europe is like, you know, it's kind of like, it's just kind of generic. I think because they don't grow in Europe and they don't grow in America. Well, they in Florida they grow, but otherwise there's not a lot of diversity in it. So any that's where I always go to do these fun talks. Is I pretty much always go to an international grocery and I just look around and see what looks good that week and where there's like enough bulk that I can buy a bunch for the seeds kids. So when I saw these apple bananas, I got these at H Mart. I've been going to H Mart quite a bit. Grand Asia is another great market. I mean, just if you just open up your like map search and you put in international markets Durham or international markets Raleigh, they'll all come up. And I just love hitting all of them and like going in and looking. Also their kitchen sections. Oh my gosh, the kitchen tools from other cultures, fantastic. So it's a nice little field trip.
Awesome. So I think we had one question in the chat. Let's see. So it's this big word, our word of the day. You're going to make me say it, aren't you, Trevor? Are they susceptible to fusarium because the quote pups are genetic clones of their parents?
I'm sorry, Trevor, you said that my sound on my computer isn't good today. So Trevor, you asked if the pups would have the fusarium.
If maybe that's why the pups are genetic clones of their parents.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why they're susceptible.
Every one of these you've ever picked up Cavendish is a clone of another Cavendish. I mean, even an apple, Hass avocados, most of our agriculture is just absolute monocropped. So when you get, especially with these, because you're not like grafting them on, they're not a true tree, every Cavendish you've ever had has been a clone of every Cavendish that's ever been. So absolutely, that's why this is a commercially, at least, an endangered species. You might be able to grow it in Florida in your backyard someday if you got a clean pup, but otherwise it's wherever they grow, if fusarium type 4 is in the soil, it's going to wipe these guys out, because the pups and even the way that they cultivate bananas commercially is now they do tissue culture in labs, so they can grow off of a small amount of tissue, plant tissue, a leaf. They can grow thousands and thousands of plants disease free in labs and then sell them to these big farms. But if you're just cultivating them the old fashioned way, I mean, even if you take those clean pups and you put them in diseased soil, it's going to take them. So except for the genetically modified ones that they've worked on, which aren't available on the market now, so don't feel like you have to be scared to eat these if you're scared of genetically modified organisms, which if you're curious about that, feel free to email me, we can talk about it. But that also that old-fashioned crossing that they're trying to do. But otherwise, this guy, I mean, it really is, enjoy it while it lasts and try to diversify your taste for bananas, because some of these other varieties, they are resistant to fusarium wilt type 4, but they might be susceptible to type 2, that sort of thing. So it's not that bananas are just going to disappear, but you may see in the next 20 years another variety developed to try to save the banana market, because it's a huge one. I mean, where else? It's got to be the cheapest fruit ever. I've seen these for 19 cents a pound. The most I've ever seen them for is like 60 cents a pound. So, that's why they're so highly consumed.
Wow. Well, thank you, Cheralyn. I think that's our last question for the day.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. Just to warn everyone, next week, we're going to do one more next week, and then I'm going to take a week off, and then we'll pick back up again. So, and I'll warn everybody about that next week too, because this is super fun, and I love going on adventures to figure out what thing I'm going to introduce you to next. So thank you for everybody that's in the Zoom today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.